we're going to start first with Chief Collins and then head our way down. So tell us a bit about the tribe you represent, brief history, how you ended up where you are.
We got the answer, not picking. My name is Chief Lisa Collins. I'm with the Wassamasaw Tribe of Varnertown Indians. Anybody know where that's located? No, it's right around the corner. I'm telling you. Oh, we're located in what used to be a very rural community at Carnes Crossroads, all the way up from Goose Creek to 176 up to going to Holly Hill in the Wassamasaw Swamp area. We also extended down 17A, all the way up, going towards Moncks Corner, all the way into Somerville. So we had a huge, diverse community. We were known at one time as the Somerville Indians. We have been called Varnertown Indians. That's where the name Varnertown comes from. But you know, we have an assimilated lineages of many Native American ancestral lines. So in our community, we have what is called a settlement community. A settlement community is when a bunch of tribal people get pushed into a settlement area and they live there and they intermarry and they form this community. So our settlement community is comprised of the Edisto Indian. That's where our Dangerfield line. Anybody out there in Dangerfield? I see a Dangerfield. Okay. Edisto Island is where the Edisto Indians once had historical ancestral lands. And of course, with the wars and this American Revolutionary War, you know, the last known Edisto Indian, which was Indian Mary, her daughter married Dangerfield, who was in the American Revolutionary War. And their children were given, or they had a plantation in St. John's, Berkeley, which was a parish back then. Before we had counties and things like that, we had parishes. We had St. James Goose Creek, St. John's, Berkeley, all these parishes. So that's where they resided and intermarried into our settlement community. We also have an ancestral line of the Etowah Indians. Any Etowah Indians out there? Yes, yeah, if you're from our community, you got some Etowah. So who are the Etowah? You know, the Etowah used to dwell and live on the Charleston Peninsula, was there when Charlestown Landing occurred. They also lived on Daniel Island. They got pushed inland, and they were granted some land on the west side of the Wassamasaw Swamp. So a lot of our Etowah lineage comes from the Wassamasaw Swamp area. Now, how did they get involved in our settlement community? Well, you ever heard of the Yamasee Indian War? So we had some Indian wars and some other wars, and so as their numbers dwindled, they had a fear of people coming and stealing them, trading them, making them slaves. Also, just, you know, for safety reasons, they merged with the settlement community, and that's why we have Etowah in our community. We also have Cherokee and Catawba. We have Clarks out there. Any of the Clarks? I see some Clarks out there, some Clark lineages. That is your Catawba line. Our Catawba line comes from the Clarks. There was a Catawba lady living in St. James Goose Creek that had the Clark line. Why are there Catawbas in St. James Goose Creek? Why are there Cherokees in St. James Goose Creek? Well, the Cherokee Path came right through our community and all the way to Charleston, where they traded. And so they would stay in our community and they would intermarry. So we have Catawba and Cherokee lines in our community as well. Some Burbages, some Cherokee, all of those lines, and they intermarried. And so our tree doesn't branch like normal for other people. It kind of twists and turns on top of one another because all of these descendants are intermarrying in all these different lines. And that's why we have a settlement community. I know I'm talking a long time, but I want you to know who we are. So we have been in this area since the late 1700s. And we have been there surviving where nobody else wanted to live. Now we have development. We have townhomes, hospitals, all this development occurring in our ancestral lands, and we're kind of worried. We're worried about being pushed out because our family members can't afford to keep their land anymore because of all the development. So, how do we know who we are? Well, we lived in a very isolated community. We had our own businesses, we had our own stores, we had our own family gardens, and where we planted and provided for one another, and we have our oral history and traditions. But the state knew who we were. Back in 1930s, they started these schools, state-supported schools. This is during the time of segregation. And so we were not allowed to go into the white schools. We were not allowed to go into the African American schools. So we had our own Indian schools that the state supported. And so there were several of those, one of them being Pineview and one of them being the Varnatown Indian School. Now these schools stayed active until about the 1960s when desegregation occurred. And that happened in all of our communities where we had to assimilate into the public school system, and they were shutting down our schools. Also during the 1930s, there was depression, and there was a fine lady. You said she hid in a car, but I don't know if she hid in a car or a buggy or what it was. But her name is Marion Post Wolcott. She was working with the Farm Bureau, and she was recording depression in the farms in the communities and taking pictures. And she came to Varnatown, she came to our community and took a picture of my great-grandmother, your grandmother, and her children, and it was called Somerville Indians, and they also called us another name. We're not too happy about this other name. People like to call our family brass ankles. Well, brass ankles were not a very nice term to call people of a different race. They wanted to say we were not all native, that we were mulattoes, mestizos, or brass ankles. There's a multi-triracial people. So we have lived in the community all these years and gone to the school, and all of our children have been going through public school system, and no one knows about our community. Nobody knows about the Native American history of the area in Berkeley County. And we're trying to correct that. We're trying to educate, we're trying to do outreach, we're trying to preserve our community, we're trying to make sure our children have good self-esteem about who they are and learn their culture. And did I answer every question? Pretty much. So that is who we are.
Hi, my name is Dana Mokelby. I am a member of the Edisto Natchez-Kusso Tribe and also a council member. Our tribe is currently located in two counties, that is Dorchester County and Colleton County. We have roughly an enrolled membership of about anywhere from 1,000 to 1,200 members. That's just enrolled members. That doesn't necessarily mean that that's everyone that belongs to the tribe. We, like Lisa and the Wassamasaw and Mr. Mokelby here from the Santee, we've been here since the creation of time. For us, the early records was when the Spanish came in the 1500s. At one particular time, we're two tribes, the Natchez and the Kusso. The Natchez came over from Mississippi during the French and Indian War. During the first one, they hijacked it out of there, went to North Carolina because they were being picked, and sent down to Barbados in the Caribbean to be slaves down there in the sugar plantations. And so there was a group of Kusso that decided to run to North Carolina to hide out so they would become slaves. And eventually they morphed and worked their way down into Charleston. So for us, I don't know what to say. This is a lot. And a lot of what I have to say would pretty much will mimic her. You know, we had same segregation issues in the 60s. They wouldn't let the children go to school, so they, I don't want to say picketed and rioted, but you know, they stood their grounds and said, you know, our kids deserve an education. We had the last Native American school that in South Carolina that was closed, I want to say in like 1969, 1970. That's currently where our free Indian clinic is housed at right now.
And you just received 2 historical markers, one of which is put
Yes.
right there.
Yes.
And I believe that case about the school went all the way up to the state Supreme Court.
Yes, they had to hold. So yeah, a couple of my aunts and uncles got sent to jail with their babies because they built a new school in Ridgeville to incorporate the black children. However, when the native kids, there wasn't very many, but a handful of them went to go to school, they were like, yeah, we don't really have any room for you. We might put you in some old trailers, but not today kind of thing. And they didn't want to stand for it anymore. So they fought, argued, talked, whatever you want to call it. And then everybody got a little upset and decided to call the police, the paddy wagon, and they all got literally shackled by their hands and feet and put on the bus with their kids and their babies and went to jail for the night. Anywho, you name it, we've done it. We also have a historical marker over there on the Cottageville side, on the same side of the street as the church. We have one Indian, I'm going to say Indian church. It is Pastor Dr. Creel, who is also our chief, and the marker is there as well.
My name is Philip Muglany, and as said, most of what you're going to hear from me is similar to what they're saying. I'm a council member for the Santee Indian organization, and basically, what they're explaining is the same thing. You're looking at back in the 1500s, 15 to 1700s, you had 3 major wars. Those wars kind of encompassed what we were as a whole as Native Americans. My tribe pretty much hails from like the North Dakota area. We're Sioux, so we are Sioux and a mixture of Catawba as well. And so, a lot of people think that Cherokee is the major band here in the East, but the reality is you have several different things that come down. And just like the chief said, we are intermingled. Like myself, my grandfather is a Edisto Natchez-Kusso. My grandmother is a Santee. So that shows you the intermingling of the families and how we all became to be. Because as you hear, our last name is Muglany, so is mine. So that's why I say we're so intermingled about it. But you're looking at some of the major things, like they brought up the Revolutionary War. The Revolutionary War was terrible. These wars ended up seeing, like the Santee was one of the bigger tribes in the coastal area. That became something that kind of worried I guess you'd say the English and the British, and so what ended up happening was a lot of us were taken into custody. We were shipped off to the West Indies. We were thrown down to the Caribbean. We were used for slave labor and such like that. And just like they said, the children that were left that were also here, it had to be something that they pretty much bred out of us. They bred our culture, tried to breed our culture out of us. They tried to encompass their colonization into us, never putting us as people that were humble, people that were just out here to do good things for people and just accepting. And that has become really one of our primary traits, but it's also become one of our downfalls in the history because of the fact that we were so accepting of people, and whether they did it through the schools or they did it through English disease or such like that, to try to kind of pretty much, it was almost like a first genocide. What they tried to do was actually kill us out, because they figured if they killed us out, our resources would be more available. All the things that we have, the land, they could, cultivize the land. We've already taught them how to do these things on our property. And we have seen that kind of stuff go downhill firsthand. I mean, like the Santee, one of the biggest things that we had was we actually had the Santee Mound that was in the Santee Canal Park when that was created. In that mound was pretty much destroyed by who other than the swamp fox, Francis Marion. So the concept is, when the Santee Canal Park was being constructed, they went in there and they located the remnants of this mound, and in there, they've currently found 16 documented sites, sacred sites in there, and they're still researching those sites to sit back and get all the sentimental value or all the historic value out of those. Now, while I understand that we need to educate people on our Native American culture, one thing that I learned growing up as a kid is one of the biggest things you do not do is you do not desecrate that property. You do not mess with those graves. And right now, those graves are being disrespected. I got it. There's something that we need to hold true to. And we also need to, respect those graves to be something of way more than just historic value. These are families, these are cultures. These are things that without those things being left undisturbed, they're things that would go away. Because the way we see nowadays history, them trying to kill history completely, if they can push history completely out, then what happened to us, what's happened to other cultures can be completely gotten rid of. And the way I see it, growing up, not only myself, but I also do a lot, I used to do a lot of work in the schools and talking to kids about their backgrounds and their cultures. I'm seeing that they're starting to get rid of pertinent information that kids need to focus on for their ancestry and their cultures. And if they completely erase the culture, then what we're going to end up with is we're all the same. And there's, I hate to say it like this, but the idea is the government took the position of when you do a regular ancestry background, you'll see you might go back 10 to 15 generations. You might be able to do that and go all the way to England or Ireland or any of these places. When you look at the way our background ancestry is, the government did not allow us to keep records as long as everybody else. So it's very minimal that we're able to research as much as we are, because that information was never readily available. They did not want us to keep that available. They did not want us to keep that stuff recorded. So that's what's made it hard for us to do what we do. But you see these people that you see on the stage, we're just a group, we're just a handful of people that want to pass on our culture to others so that we're not forgotten, because why? The ancestors before us went through so much to get us to where we're at. So if we turn around and allow that kind of stuff to go away, that's going to be something that dies off. And I hate to think that, everybody out here has a culture. Everybody out here has family and ancestry and people that did all they did for you. And that's what we're trying to make sure that stuff is brought to the forefront. So not only does the past not reoccur, but also it's something that our kids can carry on to their kids so that this stuff doesn't die away, because to us, this place is the most sacred place to be, and it's where our ancestors sat down, settled, and made a home. And we're just trying to really just to maintain that culture so that we don't die away. We don't disappear. So what you see on this stage are people who don't want our culture to disappear. We want to honor the people that came before us, and we want to make sure that the futures that come after us are things that we can see and see the pride in what we are.